Good morning again. I call the board meeting to order this day on December 15th at 11 a.m. The Board of Voters Registration and the Elections of Beaufort County. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first on the agenda is public comments. Do we have anyone for public comments? If so, please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Okay, we don't have anyone for public comments. Next, we will move to the minutes from our previous meeting. And we had, on November the 9th, we had board meeting. And also on November the 9th, we had our canvas hearing. Can I please get a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second.
I have one comment, minor comment, on the committee reports.
Which one?
Committee
We haven't
report.
got to that yet.
This was in the minutes.
It's in the
Notes.
It's in the notes. Okay, it's in
The minutes. It's in the
okay,
minutes.
which one?
Finance.
Finance, the staff provided an October year-to-date report. It wasn't a draft budget report, it was an October year-to-date.
Year to date?
Yes.
So was it a draft
No,
year to date?
no,
Just a year to date?
it was actual.
Remove
It was
draft.
actual.
Remove the word draft.
Well, I'll change it to staff provided a year to date October
Report,
report
yep.
and delete budget.
I move that we accept the minutes with the corrections.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we accept the minutes with the necessary correction. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any noes, nay? None, seeing none? Minutes have been accepted. Okay, now we are down to item number 4, committee reports. First on the agenda is Facilities Committee, Mr. Herbert Ford.
We have nothing to report at this time.
Finance Committee,
Nothing to report for this month. We're targeting a finance committee meeting the week of January 8th. The date has not been confirmed yet.
Legislative Affairs Committee, Matthew Sweeney.
The proposed language that we sent to the legislative delegation for the bill regarding 77110, I think it was. A bill has not been pre-filed yet, but I'll continue to follow up with the delegation to try to get that bill drafted and submitted.
Re-presenting Committee, Beverly Dorr.
The re-presenting committee met on December 5th, 2023 at the Beaufort County Voter Registration and Elections Office on John Galt Road. The meeting was called to order at 11 a.m. Present at the meeting were the following members: Herbert Ford, Matt Sweeney, Dallin Lucas, and Beverly Dorr, Chair. The following staff members attended: Marie Smalls, Director, Wenda Robeson, Deputy Director, and Vernon Kemp, IT Elections Systems Coordinator. The meeting proceeded as outlined on your agendas, so I'm not going to review that. The purpose of the meeting was twofold: to review the locations of proposed new precincts and match them to identified polling places within a specific geographical vicinity. The staff, with appropriate assistance, has taken the lead on this item of concern. And secondly, to review and acquaint re-precincting committee members with the process utilized for identifying and confirming new polling places. It was noted that there were three primary reasons to reduce the size of these precincts. The first one was to minimize the number of voters reporting to an election on election day. Secondly, to reduce the waiting line at the polling place, thus minimizing the length of time it takes a voter to vote on election day. And thirdly, to comply more closely with Law 7-7-710, which requires a reduction in the size of precincts with more than 1,500 registered voters. Prior discussion by the re-precincting committee and staff centered around examining precincts with over 1,600 voters and identifying polling places amenable to accepting voters in those specifically defined areas. And as you all know, we currently have 95 precincts and 31 proposed new precincts, totaling 126 total. Specific actionable items were discussed, and the re-precincting committee members and staff compiled a list of proposed new precincts, and I've outlined those for you in writing. And as you can see, if you need me to read this for the sake of the fact that we are being televised, I can do that, Madam Chair, or we can just review this information. Do I need to verbally go over these items?
Does everybody have a copy of that?
Everybody has a copy, and it's a compiled list of proposed new precincts. And we went over the compiled list, the hard copy, and we indicated some concerns that we had about dividing some of our largest precincts at the Plantation House, the Hilton Head 5A, Hilton Head 4C, Hilton Head 5C. And we also wanted to focus on relieving the overcrowding at the Plantation House by finding additional polling places for Hilton Head 5A and Hilton Head 4A. And we were supposed to check with Dolphin Head as a possibility. I know Mr. Wedgeworth has really been busy over there in the Hilton Head area, helping us to identify locations. And we were also trying to locate one or two polling places within Sea Pines for Hilton Head 14 and Hilton Head 15B. And I think pretty much the 19 of the new polling places had pretty much been confirmed. So we actually focused during that meeting on the 9 polling places that have not been confirmed. And these are listed for your perusal. And I just wanted to indicate that C, the New Hope Christian Church that was being proposed has been confirmed for the location of Burton 3A. And also I confirmed the Grace AME Church, which will house Ladies Island 1A. The location is adequate. I spoke with Wendell earlier today, and the location appears to be adequate. And also, the Sea Island Presbyterian Church has confirmed that it is willing to house Ladies Island 1B. We are working on, I think, to this date, Wendell, I think it's only about 3 of those that we need to continue to tweak and confirm, look at the space, make sure it's adequate, make sure the entrance and exits, 2 ways to get in and get out are available, and the size is appropriate for use. But this pretty much concludes most of what we discussed. I did make a statement, Mr. Sweeney. Your statement was taken for the purposes of the notes, and you suggested that we look at the presidential preference primary to be held on February 3rd and February 24th in terms of locations, and that topic was discussed at our previous board meeting on November 9th. It was also referenced in an email that was received on November 15th by you. And then we also discussed the presidential preference primaries at the workshop on December 6, 2023. So there is no issue regarding that at this point. Are there any comments?
I've looked elsewhere at the director's report, and she's got some locations that are not on your list. Is that
That's
because they were-
subsequent to my meeting.
okay.
We met on November 15th. And subsequent to that time, as you can see, we did confirm several polling places.
And it looks like there's some totally new ones that are not on your report at all.
Right, because this is what we discussed
At November.
November 15th, and that's what I'm reporting on.
I believe this accurately reflects our discussion on November 15th.
Thank you.
However, the 19 new polling locations, I believe we've agreed to make those effective for the June 11th primary election, not for the PPPs, except for some on a case-by-case basis that might be changed for PPPs.
Okay, I'm just reporting on what we discussed
I
at that
understand.
particular time.
understand.
Now, as we go forward, we may change some of this that was discussed, but I'm sure that will come during our discussion on the new business at this meeting.
So just as a point of clarification, the meeting was November 15th, but on the front page, you have December 15th at the top. And at the top of the next page, you have December 15th.
Thank you, sir. I will change that. This was the date I was supposed to present it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions? Great report, Beverly. Thank you very much. Okay, Rules Committee.
So I apologize, I got the recommendations from 3 of the board members, and I thought I'd sent them into the staff to be recompiled, and I can't find where I sent the email, so I'll go ahead and resend those and have them recompiled this weekend, once I find them.
Okay. We're moving right on along here. Now, new business. County Attorney presentation, Mr. Thomas. Kevaney. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, my name is Tom Kennedy. I'm one of the county attorneys with Beaufort County. I've been in-house counsel with Beaufort County since May of 2015. I've been asked today to talk to you guys a little bit about executive session. So what I'm going to do is go over the law of South Carolina statutes with regard to executive session. What you can go into it, how you go into it, what you can discuss, what you can't discuss, and those kind of issues. This is a presentation that I gave a couple of years ago to new council members, county council, and so what we'll do is just walk through this. So the very first thing to realize is that in South Carolina, as in most states, public meetings are supposed to be just that, public. The public is supposed to be able to know what's going on, to be able to participate wherever possible. And this is a statement from the Attorney General, which pretty much states that exact fact. South Carolina has adopted Freedom of Information Act, and 30-4-60 provides that very, very simply, every meeting of all public bodies shall be open to the public unless closed pursuant to the next statutory section. So, number one, they need to be open. Now, with regard to section 70, what it says, and I've just kind of picked and chosen from the statute, and we'll go through each of these, but the most important part of this section, in my opinion, one of the most important parts is, it says that a public body may hold a meeting closed to the public for one or more of these reasons. May hold a meeting closed to the public. In other words, it doesn't have to be. So the body has to decide whether or not it even wants to go into an executive session. And there's a process by which that happens. And I've got to kind of move around here so I can see what is up there, because it has been a while since I've gone through this. So there are, I think it's 5 total exceptions. 1 or 2 of them really don't apply much to our bodies. They apply to the General Assembly and some organizations in Columbia. But one reason you can go into executive session is to discuss employment, appointment, compensation or promotion or demotion or discipline or release of an employee regulated by a body. County council does that. I don't imagine that you guys will do that very much, but or if at all. But for instance, the county council has 1 employee, and that is the county administrator. It also has a clerk to council, but county administrator is their primary employee. And if they want to talk about terms of employment, whether to employ, whether to demote, whether to fire, and all that kind of stuff, they can move to go into executive session and discuss it if they want to, but they don't have to. Second reason is to discuss contracts, to get legal advice, and to discuss things that are usually considered to be attorney-client privilege. So for instance, if you guys have an issue that comes up, it's a matter of law, you want to try to figure out what your options are, and strategize on a way to approach it, discuss the various approaches, you can go into executive session to do that. You can't make any decisions, you can't vote, you can't commit each other to a particular course of action in executive session, but you can talk about it. Now, there are 2 ways that bodies go into executive session. One way is to list it on your agenda. So for instance, sometimes you'll see a county council agenda, very often you'll see a county council agenda, in which at the end it'll say executive session. Pursuant to 30-4-70, one of these are subsections of 30-4-70. To receive legal advice on a matter covered by the attorney-client privilege, and it might say in parentheses, a case that's pending, and I want to talk to council members about it. Or go into executive session to discuss negotiations of contractual obligations. So for instance, suppose we are in a dispute with somebody and we want to talk about that. Or suppose we are looking at a contract that we want to go into and what kind of terms to negotiate. That frequently happens with regard to purchases of land, especially rural and critical properties, talking about where it is, what kind of terms we want to discuss, how much money they want to offer, what the offer is, how much we're willing to pay, terms and conditions, and those kinds of things. So that is this. Another is to discuss security personnel or devices. You certainly don't want to discuss that in public, especially if it's security and it's related to security for the organizations. Investigative proceedings, then proposed expansion, industries and whatnot. So for instance, we don't do that very much, but right now, but council has done that a lot, kind of more about 5 or 6 years ago, and that is to discuss economic development. So if a corporation wants to locate here, what terms and conditions under which the council would be willing to do that. I don't imagine that that is something you guys are going to get into very much. So how does council go into an executive session? Number one, You can list it on your, and you should list it on your agenda if you know you're going to discuss it. So, like I said, for instance, if we know in advance that we're going to discuss a contract, or council needs advice on a certain issue, or you guys decide that you want to get legal advice on an issue in advance of your meeting, you can list it on the agenda, and it's posted. Another way you can do it is if you're in the middle of discussing something, like I heard Ms. Dorr's presentation. If you hear something that she says, and you say, you know what, I want to find out what the law is on this, that, or the other thing. And suppose I'm here for one reason or another, you can move to go into executive session right then to receive legal advice about that matter. Then you go into, somebody has to make a motion. It has to be specific, exactly what the purpose of the executive session is. I move that we go into executive session to receive legal advice regarding the issue just raised by Ms. Dorr. Has to have a second, and then you have to vote. It has to be a majority vote. Okay, then you can go into executive session. While you're in executive session, all you can talk about is exactly that subject, the reason you're in executive session. You can't say, oh, and by the way, you know what, Joe, I meant to tell you about this and the other thing. What does the body think about that? You can't do that. You must limit your executive session to that very topic. All you can do in executive session is move to adjourn or move to recess and go out of executive session. You can't take a straw poll. You can't say, hey, everybody, how's everybody feeling about this? Raise your hand, raise your finger. You cannot do that. You can certainly get a sense of the body. You can get a feel for where you guys are on an issue, but there can be no voting, no committing of each other to positions in the executive session. Council, most frequently after discussing a matter, council does not usually have a motion from somebody to say, hey, okay, I move that we get out of executive session, I second it, we don't do that. It's just like, okay, are we finished with this? Yes, we are. Okay, let's go back out. So, in that particular instance, like I just talked about, when you're in the middle of discussing something, you decide you need to get legal advice, or you want to talk about something that you believe is confidential, you can move to go into executive session, and then you come back out, and then you resume the discussion about that particular item. Let's see. This is a slide about the specific purpose. These are the purposes that you can articulate. When you're going into executive session to talk about a particular individual, like for instance, if council wants to talk about our county administrator, typically it just refers to a person regulated by council. We don't necessarily identify. We're going to talk about Tom Kennedy or somebody like that. We don't do that. This is just to reiterate what action can be taken. No action can be taken that commits anybody to anything. You can move to adjourn, you can move to return to public session, but as I indicated, we don't typically do that. Again, no commitments. Here, as I indicated, the purpose must be limited to the reason that you went into it. Cannot exceed the scope of the topic of the motion. Members can't commit to the body to any course of action, and the conversations are privileged and are not to be repeated, circulated, shared with parties not privy to the executive session. Much to my dismay, South Carolina does not ensure the confidentiality of matters that are discussed in executive session. There is no statutory
Punitive measure.
action that can be taken against a person who decides after executive session that they're going to go out into the public and talk about what they just were told. It seems to me that there should be some kind of consequence, but there's not. There's nothing in the statute, in FOIA. There's nothing in the Ethics Act. People have actually received, in the past, people have received documents that are stamped, confidential, attorney-client privilege, and they get them in executive session. for the purposes of discussing in executive session. And then they leave and they go and give that document out. Nothing that can be done about that, unfortunately. Must it be related to an agenda item that's to be included on the agenda? No. It can reach, like we were talking about, you can reach an item, and you need to go into executive session, and you can. The Attorney General has asked public bodies to be sure to list agenda items for executive session if before the meeting you know you're going to have a reason to go into executive session. The council vote to amend an agenda to include an executive session item. It can if it wants to. However, state law requires that if you post an agenda, and this is FOIA law, state law requires if you post an agenda, and after you've posted it, of course it has to be posted at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting, and suppose you realize that, oh my gosh, we forgot to put something on it. You can amend your agenda once your meeting starts, but you have to take a vote. The vote has to be by a 2/3 majority in order to add an item to an agenda that is not on the agenda, which has been noticed to the public. Now, suppose you've got a situation where something has come up and you need to add it, and you want to take final, whatever action council takes, or you guys take, as opposed to just discussing it. If you want to make a decision, and that decision will be binding, then you need to have the 2/3 vote in order to add it, but the body also has to find that there are exigent circumstances which warrant taking a decision that will be binding. And that, of course, requires the two-thirds vote. So you have to say what it is, and you have to say what the exigent circumstance is. Like, for instance, there's an election next week, and we don't have time to post an agenda and have another meeting, okay? And that's it. I have brought a copy of the section, the code section I just went over for you, 30-4-70, and I'll distribute that to you guys each. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Yes, sir.
So if a board member is not able to attend the meeting, is that board member still allowed to get the information from the executive session?
There's no statutory law on it. I personally prefer not to. I personally prefer that that whatever information is distributed at the meeting stay with the folks that are in that meeting. Yes, sir.
You had said that there wasn't any statutory activity that prohibited somebody from discussing something outside of executive session.
Nothing that I know of.
Right. Now, if you review a document in executive session that's stamped attorney-client privilege, wouldn't that penalty carry over if they discuss that document outside of executive session?
What penalty?
Discussing a document labeled attorney-client privilege.
There's no consequence.
So there's no penalty for
Consequence.
either
No
way.
penalty.
Okay.
No. I researched it a couple of years ago. There's nothing. You know, bodies, and I've discussed this with the Association of Counties, actually. Bodies can censure their members for doing things like that, but those kinds of rules need to be in your rules and procedures. Probably about 2 years ago, I believe it was, the Isle of Palms City Council adopted a rule that allowed it to censure members who disclosed information that they learned in executive session. And shortly after it adopted that rule, it sought to enforce it. Well, some member of their council was alleged to have divulged to some third party information that the body believed that person learned in the session. So the last time I looked at it was when it was all happening. So they started the process, but the member that they sought to censure asked all kinds of questions, like, well, what do we have? What are you going to do? And it wasn't in the rules. The rules just said that they could be censured, but it didn't discuss what the process was, didn't discuss what the rights of the individual who was seeking to be censured were. Was that person entitled to have a lawyer? Was the city council going to pay for the lawyer? Was there going to be evidence? Was there going to be testimony? Who was going to be the adjudicator? All those kinds of things. And those are real legitimate questions. Those are good due process kinds of questions. I lost track of it because our council decided not to go down that road, and I didn't follow what happened with the Isle of Palms situation. It probably withered on the vine, is kind of my guess, but I don't know for sure. But it's very hard, and when I talked to the Association of Counties several years ago about this very issue, what can we do to ensure that information that members receive that is confidential stays confidential? And they told me they weren't aware of any county that had a rule incorporated in their rules and procedures that resulted in a consequence. For the reason we're talking about, I mean, it would be a very difficult process to go through. How do you prove that the person, in fact, disclosed it? You know, I mean, what is that whole process? What does it look like? It's very difficult. Yes, Ms.
If no vote is taken during the session, how do you, and it's a sensitive personnel issue, when you have the regular meeting, how do you address the issue without it being, it is public at that point?
Sure. Well, I mean, we went through that this summer. Council decided first to suspend our former county administrator, put him on leave with pay, and then came back a couple of days later and terminated him for cause. So in executive session, we went over the issues that were relevant to the suspension. What are they? And discussed them, fleshed them out thoroughly. And then the members of council discussed it. Well, this is how I feel about it. This is how I feel about it. Oh, I think you're jumping to conclusions. I don't think that evidence is good enough. You know, are you sure about that? Are you sure you want to do that? And so, the question was, does council wish to suspend him with pay? So after everybody was talking about it, I mean, the chairman sat up there and said, anybody else have anything else they want to say? No? All right. Are we ready to go out? We are. All right. I'll need a motion. Somebody will need to make a motion. Oftentimes, they will discuss, well, what will that motion look like? Because you don't want to necessarily be out there on the dais trying to craft a motion. So the motion would be, well, I move to suspend him. Or I move that we don't suspend him. And then we go out onto the dais, and the chairman says, all right, we're out of executive session. Does anybody wish to make a motion? And either somebody does or somebody doesn't. It gets a second, and that's the way it goes.
Okay.
So, and this is kind of going into Robert's Rules of Order, and I don't really want to talk a lot about Robert's Rules of Order because I haven't prepared a presentation for it. But what you do is when you come out, you make a motion, and it has to have a second, and it has to have a majority. And after that happens, what you have going on right then is some kind of an action. It is a debate on the motion. It's not a conversation. And you don't say, hey, Bill, how do you feel about this issue? I think that's silly and all that kind of stuff. It's like everybody gets to speak. And typically, the chairperson will call. Under Roberts, you have to wait for the chair to call your name in order for you to speak. Under Roberts, the rule is, the preference is that everybody on the body gets to speak once before anybody gets to speak twice. Okay. And the chair is in charge of the procedures, and anybody who feels aggrieved by the chair can move to override the chair And there's a process for doing all of that.
But if you go into executive session to inform the body of a sensitive topic, when they come out, they don't have to discuss it anymore.
Well, it should, that kind of item should be on your agenda.
If it's a security issue, so let's say we have a security problem. I mean, we need to know about it, but we're not going to vote on it. We can do that, correct?
Well, when did you become aware of the security issue?
We were just informed of it. You know, we had an election and something happened. You know, we have an election and it turns out there is a major security breach of some kind. And we need to discuss it.
Then you get in touch with the chairman or Ms. Smalls and you say, I think we need an emergency meeting because we've got a security issue.
Okay, so we have an emergency meeting. We didn't.
And you list it on your agenda.
Okay, but the point is, that great of an emergency would we not have time to post it for 24 hours for FOIA. So how would we handle it?
I don't think you don't need to post emergency meetings for 24
So
hours.
it's an emergency meeting. Part of the problem may be public knowledge, we discuss that publicly, part of it's not public knowledge, we go into emergency session.
Let me take that back. I better double check. I said you don't think you need to have 24 hours for emergency meetings. You might need to have 24 hours. It's been a while since I looked at that. But you post it. Go ahead.
You posted, but can you have a meeting less than 24 hours?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to
Okay.
look at the statute because it's all governed by the law.
Right.
So I'd have to look. But
Okay, I just want to know, I mean,
What?
if you're going to discuss it, it needs to be on your agenda. If you've got an agenda item and you need to go into executive session while you're discussing it, you can do that. But if you're holding a meeting to discuss an executive session an item, you need to list it on your agenda.
okay. And my point is, if we need to discuss it in less than 24 hours, because you have to post 24
I'd have to look back at the statute to see
Okay.
if emergency meetings require 24 hours.
Okay.
I just don't recall off the top of my head.
It seems that what I'm hearing you saying in this particular instance is that you have it on the agenda, you open the meeting, then you make a motion to go into executive session. You go into executive session, you discuss the item is discussed in the executive session, you make a motion to come out of executive session, and you come back into your regular meeting and say, we have discussed the item in executive session.
And
Meeting's
no
over.
action was taken.
Meeting's over.
You can't take an action.
If you don't want to
because
take
no vote.
action on the item.
Right.
If you don't want to take if you want to take action, if you look at the council's agendas, we have executive session, and then we have matters arising out of executive
Right.
session. Because we may have matters arising out of executive session. So if you anticipate, my rule with the clerk to council is, if we have executive session, we have matters arising out of executive session, even though we're pretty confident that we will have nothing coming out of executive session. And the reason you do that is because if you do need to have a motion coming out of executive session, you want to be able to do it.
Right.
So that covers you so you can go either way, is what you're
Yes,
saying?
that's exactly right.
Okay.
Right, exactly right. So I got to check on the emergency meeting, and the reason I knew is because, we had that with Hurricane Matthew. We had emergency meetings for disaster and that kind of stuff. So let me double check, and I'll get in touch with Marie and let her know about that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are down to early voting center location.
Who's making that presentation?
I think we can get a copy of this PowerPoint. Mr. Phillips, we're moving. I think we can get a copy of your PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That would be great.
This is, there should be plenty of copies. This is the statute. I don't have a copy of my PowerPoint, but I can print it up for you and give it to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. right now I'm going to pause to do a quick presentation to Mr. Pelly, okay? He has to leave. He have an appointment.
I have another
so-
meeting.
Yeah.
My new job.
This is the early voting center.
Ah, right. Oh, this looks beautiful. I can see it. Okay, Mr. Pelly, Certificate of Appreciation. Presented to Craig Allen Pelly for your dedication and service to the Board of Voter Registration and Elections of Beaufort County and the state of South Carolina from October 2018 through December 2013. Awarded this 15th day of December 2023. Lee Mitchell, Chair, Marie S. Small, CERA Director. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Pelly,
and
for
don't
your
forget
service.
us.
Uh,
Okay?
You just want me for my wife.
Was what?
Thank you.
I love his wife too. We went shopping in Myrtle Beach.
Got to put this on right here. Okay, early voting center. That's on the new business.
Sure, if this topic is about early voting on Hilton Head Island, we can discuss that.
No, it's about early voting center,
Location.
and that could be a part of it as well. Both of them. The full vocation, I know we already talked about it, but that wasn't like a big publicized meeting about the full voting, the early voting center for the PCTs and the proposed, early voting center on Hilton Head as well.
Okay, so at the last meeting, which took place on December 6th, there was discussion about early voting centers for the presidential preference primary elections. And the board discussed whether we would proceed with 4 early voting centers as we did in the November 2023 election. Those early voting centers were here in the office, in Bluffton, on Hilton Head, and St. Helena. And there was a discussion about whether we go down to just 2 early voting centers, one in Bluffton and one here in the office. And after discussion, a vote was taken, and it was agreed that we would proceed with the same 4 early voting centers that we had for the November 2022 election. Further to that issue, there were some discussions about the early voting center on Hilton Head Island. And having worked at the early voting center on Hilton Head at 539 William Hilton Parkway for the 2020 early in-person absentee voting, there were constantly lines out the door wrapping around the building. And during the 2022 general election, at times during the early voting period, there were also long lines that came out of the building. And for both of those elections, the limiting factor was the BMDs. For the 2022 general election, for example, there were about 18 contests on the ballot and 2 referendum questions. So it took a long time for people to go through the ballots. And the room size at that county building is limited. So we looked at using USCB down by the Sea Pines Circle as a possible early voting location for Hilton Head. David Johnson, who is a USCB Education Foundation board member, was involved, and Senator Tom Davis also got involved and spoke with Dr. Panu, the Chancellor of USCB, and they secured approval for Board of Voter Registration and Elections to use USCB for the June 11th statewide primaries and the November 5th, 2024 general election. if we'd like to do that. And the room they've allocated for us is a large room. It's about 39 by 33 feet. It can accommodate twice as many BMDs. I think we were limited to 7 BMDs at 539 William Hilton. And the USCB room that they've set aside for us could easily hold twice as many BMDs. So what's the impact on Hilton Head voters? An analysis was done, and I don't know if everybody got a copy of this, but it looked at the 2022 general election as a proxy, just to understand where voters were coming from for early voting. And based on a weighted average analysis of all of the registered voters on Hilton Head Island, understanding that not all voters will participate in early voting, there's a negligible difference. So voters who live north of the 539 early voting center, the county building that's been used historically, their travel time would go to 12.3 minutes to get to the early voting center. At the south end, and the people from the south end, no, sorry, I don't have that quite right. Let me just talk about the change. Voters north of the current early voting center will have an additional 5.3 minutes of travel time. That's a weighted average travel time to get to USCB. And voters at the south end of the island will have 5.8 minutes less weighted average travel time. So the net result is a negligible difference overall for island voters. So I propose that USCB used for the June 11th, 2024 statewide primary and the November 5th, 2024 general election instead of the county office at 539 William Hilton Parkway.
That's a motion.
Oh.
I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Okay, did you make the motion?
Okay,
Can I
so-
get a- go
Yeah,
ahead.
let me formalize that as a motion.
Okay.
So I make a motion that for early voting, the early voting period for the June 11th statewide primary in 2024 and the November 5th general election in 2024, that the Hilton Head Early Voting Center be moved from 539 William Hilton Parkway to USCB campus at the south end of the island.
I second that.
Any discussions?
I only have one question.
Yes.
You said you had it secured for the primary and the November general election.
Yes.
Is it also available if there is a runoff in June?
I didn't discuss that with USCB,
Okay.
but we can look into that.
We will follow up with the facilities.
Okay, great.
Okay. So it's been properly moved and,
Don't get the checklist to make sure
That the outlets and everything else is amenable.
I've been in that building several times, and it'll meet all the checklists.
So perhaps the motion should be amended to say, subject to the
To-
survey by
Yes,
the
they have
Board of
to
Voter
survey,
Registration
they
and
have to
Election.
make sure that the
They check the ADA.
space,
accessibility.
yes, ADA
Subject to
accessibility.
inspection and approval.
Yes.
And also, and evaluate that for future use. I mean, just kind of observe how well it works for these two occasions, for the November 5th and the presidential preference primary.
No, not for presidential preference. It's only for the statewide primary election in June and the
Okay.
November 5th general election
Okay.
next year.
That's good.
The PPPs on Hilton Head will stay at the 539 William
Okay.
Hilton Parkway address.
Okay, that's good.
all right. So we have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and properly second with the amended changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, motion carried. June the 11th, statewide primary, November 5th for the general election, and if everything approves by security, AD, et cetera, the USC building will be in use. Okay?
Okay.
Now that handles south of the Broad. Do we have a similar concern for north of the Broad? Do we have a need for north of the Broad?
You mean
I
like
wouldn't
travel
think-
time?
I didn't think that, it was, I didn't see any problems unless you
Okay.
saw
No, I'm
some.
just asking a question.
Yeah. I think that current location at the library, right,
On St. Helena.
on St. Helena is adequate. I haven't heard any community concerns.
I've never seen a line there, and I both worked there as a clerk, as a manager, and vote there, and I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's a nice facility, and it accommodates, it has all of the space availability, handicapped accessible outlets, friendly staff. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't continue with it.
Okay, all right, we're down to our director's report. Ms. Marie will get started with her list.
Hi, everybody. We're gonna go through our regular topics. We're gonna talk about the legislative updates. Since we met last, the Hilton Head Public Service District Board or Commission has met and finalized their single-member district for the Public Service District on Hilton Head. And they met on Wednesday this week, and everything is good. We've already received the maps for those districts, and we are working on incorporating them into our street listing for the town of Hilton Head precincts. Okay. We've had the City of Beaufort election. It was a successful election. That was one of the first elections we had that was really, really smooth in a long time. It was refreshing. Very few concerns came out of that election. Of course, you all just certified the results. Mr. Cromer is the winner of that election. It was certified maybe less than an hour ago. We did conduct a hand count audit. I'm not sure if this was really required because it's not a statewide election, but as a practice, we want to continue to do that so the public will continue to have doubts. We have confidence in what we do on election day. Even though it was required by the state, it's required by me that we do a hand count audit. And we did have an audience, believe it or not. We had the winner and his wife. So we had, and it was, and they were intrigued by the process. So know that the hand count audit does serve a purpose. We are right now gearing up for the PPPs, and we also are gearing up for the Bluffton special election. And most people don't realize that even though the PPPs are in February, for the military and overseas citizens, they get their ballots 45 days ahead of the election. So when you guys hear me talk about we have deadlines, we have to do this by a certain time, a lot of that is because election and creating a ballot doesn't just happen. It takes weeks to do. So our deadline for the PPPs, you will cover voters, is going to be on Wednesday, the 20th. Today is the deadline for us entering any changes to our polling locations and any changes to not just the polling location, but it's two things: polling location and any early voting center. So none of the early voting centers have changed, but and none of the, well, a couple of the precincts will be changing. We will be moving Chechessie 2 and Riverbend to the Okatee Elementary School. I think that's in my report somewhere, maybe not. And we will be changing out Charles Lynn Brown. We're going to be moving over to USCB Boundary Street.
Oh, okay.
So that will be effective for the for the February PPPs.
Marie, just general question. How many ballots will be distributed as part of, from this process? Yeah, how many?
We have
Roughly.
50.
About 50, you said?
Oh, 50.
So far. you anticipate a big insert of a request coming up? Probably.
December 30th, you got an election coming.
Poll workers briefing, I think you may have already received the schedule for that. Please try to get your list into Gene by the required time. We will have poll workers training in the morning. We have 43 people as of right now registered for those sessions. I'm not sure where all of them are coming from, but most will probably Hilton Head, right?
Most of them.
So we may have a few Bluftons in there. The good thing about the Bluffton election, Sun City folks will not be working, so we can probably borrow some of Sun City people if you guys need some assistance. Just let Mr. Kelly know he will help you guys, introduce you all to some of his poll managers who will be available to help out in the Bluffton election. For in 2024, we will have also new poll workers training on March the 16th. So these are all the new poll workers training that we have planned right now. Of course, we will be a little bit flexible, but realize that we don't have a whole lot of time between now and June to train additional people. So get as many people in as you can. We also will be working with the students, and the high school students. The letters have already gone out to the principal. We are looking at training for high school students between January 8th and 12th and January the 19th. There were 13 schools that were contacted, and we are also, sometime today we will be getting some notifications from some of the schools. And know that the poll workers, that the student poll workers will be distributed across the county. If they live in the Bluffton area, they will be working in the Bluffton area, and Hilton Head likewise.
Marie, that training sometime in January 8th to 12th, will that be equivalent to new poll worker training?
Yes, sir.
So if we had some new poll workers interested in working the
No.
PPPs,
No, it's
So they can't come to the school.
They can't come to the school.
It's just for the students.
just for students?
Yeah. If that was your question, that was your question.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
no, it's just for the students. Yes, Mr.
Marie, you said 13 schools were contacted. What was the response rate?
I knew you were gonna say that.
We're today, I contacted 13 schools. Today, I'm contacting and locking in dates for them to have a training. So I don't know who's gonna tell me what when I call them after this meeting.
So,
We know who the schools are.
We
Is
know
that
who
your
schools are.
question?
right, but none of them have gotten back to you yet.
Oh, no,
to say-
some of them got back. They're asking questions and stuff. We gave them until today to give us a POC. And today I'm gonna give them a schedule and let them know. I'll talk to them from, hey, you wanna sign up for this, whatever. And we won't know how many until we go out to the school.
Okay.
How many students?
Right.
Okay, so they don't send you a list ahead of
No,
time?
no, no.
These are the students.
What,
who want-
this is the
Black
process.
hand.
I'll just give you a heads up on the process.
Yeah.
Basically what we do, the schools and the principals have a letter. Some of them we worked before and the person knows that they're gonna be doing it. And what they do, they put it out to all the kids who are 16 to 18. We tell them 18-year-olds have to be registered voters, so they have to register to vote. What happens is, we show up, all the kids who are interested will be in that room. They'll know at that point how many kids they're gonna have. When we get there, we have, this will be 2 teams, me and Gene, we're gonna take somebody with us. Gene's going one direction, I'm going another, because we have so many schools that we're trying to. We will train the class while the other person is picking up the paperwork, make sure that everything's signed, then we're gonna get over there. And that's when we know, and then that's when we will try to farm them out to different precincts.
Where will the training take place?
Excuse me,
Excuse
I have
There's
my
school
hand up.
hours.
Ms. Davenport?
I didn't think we had 13 high schools in Beaufort.
Private schools too.
Private schools,
Beaufort
what
Academy,
private
Beaufort
schools are we
Prep.
using?
Beaufort Academy, Eagle Head Prep, Eagle Head Christian, Cross Schools,
St. Paul.
St. Paul, John Paul
John Paul.
II. They always give us a good group of kids.
Okay.
There's one on Burroughs Avenue. It's something technical, something.
I was just wondering whether we were using USCB or technical college. We're not using that level, just high schools, right?
We can send it out to them and let them know about it. We were this, for the students, we were focusing on the schedule that we had to work with them. So, the other one, we put it out to have poll workers at school, at the college.
But not at the colleges.
No, we have not set up anything to specifically go to the colleges. Because right now, we're focusing on the kids. The colleges we can get, because they have to be registered voters, we're going to do it anyway.
But I was just
Yeah.
asking if the outreach is to the
Not at
college.
this time.
Okay, that's my question.
Do we have a maximum of how many students we will allow to work?
No, what we try to do, if they all agree to work, we try to place them somewhere so that they can get that experience.
So we,
Good poll workers become good poll workers.
Right.
Yeah, they
And
become
clerks.
good clerks.
And clerks.
so how many do you think we could accommodate?
You mean at each?
No, just in general, total
We take-
students.
We take as many as we can get.
Okay, good,
I mean, literally, we take as many as we can get.
good.
You'll appreciate that when the time comes.
I actually have 2 students that are coming to my training tomorrow from Battery Creek High School. So they're interested if these schools will get their word out.
Yeah, all of
I
our
didn't know
students
they
who worked in
could
the
come to
past,
the
they
training.
actually have to come to
They
the
did.
Yep.
regular mandatory meetings now. Because they're poll, they're poll workers. We had one kid, he called us or he emailed us, said, hey, I want to work in February, is it still available? He's yours, Zach Cook. He's
Oh,
our bell
okay,
branch.
yeah, I know his name, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
He was a
he's
student.
student, yeah. So he's coming to the January meeting.
And last time I had 2 former high school workers who worked who, because of sports, couldn't do it in February.
Right. So yeah, kids are great, and Gene's gonna reiterate this in the mandatory meeting, but you need to tell your poll workers when you see them too, the kids do everything they do except clerk. So don't have them stuck on greeting people or whatever.
Oh,
They're-
they love the EVL.
Yeah, well, yeah. They let them do the work just like everybody else. Please do not hinder them, because they're very good.
Very efficient.
Very computer savvy.
Oh, yeah.
If you need or want me to assist in any way in this endeavor, I'm willing to help.
Okay, don't worry. Thank you so much.
Okay, also what we have planned, we have some community forums planned in 2024, and these are the dates. We've been working with the county PIO, and they just put out a blast for us. So if you are enrolled in the county, receiving county correspondence, you should probably have gotten that one yesterday. I think it went out yesterday. And I think it's really nice. And we're gonna be utilizing that process a little bit more, because I'm not sure what the distribution of it is, or how many people are enrolled to receive the newsletter from the county when they put out these announcements, but I'm sure it will be beneficial to all of us. He had his hand up.
I can't see.
Is there any social media presence in addition to the PIO?
Yes, we have our own website, Facebook page
Okay.
and website.
I was gonna say, I know members of county council, some of them have their personal outreach where they send out their mailing list. And because I get them from Alice Howard as an example, and some of the members of the delegation, the same thing. So those might be other people to reach out to and ask them if they have a personal, mailing list of community news.
When I'm thinking, and it may be 2 different things, but what the county council used may be the same thing that you're using. Do you know?
No, this wasn't a mailing list. You said the council members have a mailing
I
list.
just know that Alice Howard sends out like a newsletter or 2, and I'm not one for constituent. Well, yeah, more like, but this is what's going on, you might wanna know about this event. Just a whole list of different things that are going on, meetings that, like with zoning that people might be interested in, just a whole arrangement. And I'm not in her district,
Okay.
but I get it.
Yeah, what we
Yeah.
found out yesterday is a little bit different.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, so it may be, I don't get the one from the county, but I get hers. So, there might be other avenues that way.
Sure.
I just want to volunteer to submit my name and the name of Gerald Dawson to help coordinate a location of the Del Lobico area community forum. I'm very pleased to see that they've been added, and I think that this would be a very well anticipated forum for the community out there.
Yeah, we have a contact already. We've been working, but yeah.
I was just volunteering, that's all.
Yeah, we just haven't gotten confirmation yet. Yes, sir.
Regarding marketing these forums, I think it's great that you're working with the county to do that. But could we board members give some suggestions to you about other organizations like the Rotary Clubs,
Right.
Kiwanis? I'm
That's
sure
what I
you're working
wanted
with the
to
League
do.
of Women Voters and the parties already.
Yeah, they get all of our correspondence.
And even the legislative delegation, they send out newsletters, they could include this
County
information.
council members who live in
County
these
council.
areas, and there's a very active church, Mount Carmel Baptist Church, and Reverend Moore would be more than happy to even host it. He has a very active community association
That
in his
is number
community.
one on our list if this other location falls through.
Right,
Yep.
we're just
Great minds,
we're
great
just
minds.
trying
We're
to
solving
promote and collaborate with you. That's all we're trying to do.
So if we have all of these suggested other ways to market the forum, should we send them to you, Marie?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I actually send them to Jean.
Send them to you.
Marie, I'd like to help with publicizing some of these forums. Is it any way possible I could get a copy of what you're sending out and I can pass it out through my contacts?
Good idea.
Jean?
Absolutely. As soon as I get that last location locked on and I create my new flyer for this year, I'll get that to you guys.
Okay, now I may have missed a point with this next topic, so you guys jump in anytime you want. When we met on the 6th of December to discuss the election hot wash, we ended up talking about a variety of issues, and one of them was the poll worker management management. And so I'm assuming, and I may be off key, that from the extensive work that was done by one of our board members and the surveys that were taken, that you guys really don't want to call poll managers. So we are taking it upon ourselves to relieve you of that responsibility. And if I'm wrong, you guys can correct me right now. But effective in March, we are recommending that staff will take over the management and assignment of poll workers for all elections. So
I would like to continue to call the people that work with me. Thank you.
What we will do as a board, and I would hope that Madam Chair will address this as a motion, so that we will have on record what the majority of the board desires are, and we will, let's vote on the first item, and then we'll go to the rest of the item. Because I don't want to have any confusion as to who is responsible for what. Am I missing the point? Is this something that you guys want, or is it something that you want to tell me?
Does that also include the associated training? For example, now if a poll worker misses the mandatory training classes, they're handed off to the board member, and the board member is responsible for training. Is the intent to include that in this?
Well, you can. Now, be aware that if it's the day before the election, that would be the last training, the day before the election. And typically, what we have done in the last election, we had a session here and a session on Hilton Head. So anyone who did not or was not able to attend one of the scheduled briefings would need to attend one of those two locations. And the reason why I'm saying that is you have to be aware that if staff is going to train, staff has to be available to train. And the day before the election is already pushing it because of all the
intricate stuff that needs to take place prior to the election. So if you have poll managers that are out there and cannot make any of the briefing, we will know that, because we will be dealing with that and you won't. So if someone cannot make a briefing, we will be taking care of that. You won't have to be chasing somebody, and you don't have to be treating anybody. We will handle all of that. So, Madam Chair.
Okay?
Are these recommendations? I think that,
What is
these
the
are
motion?
recommendations, right?
Someone has to make a motion.
Just about to
I'll make a
Is the
motion.
Is the motion being made?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that staff will acquire the management and assignment and associated training of all poll workers for all elections.
Okay?
And I would
Is there a
like,
second?
I'd like to amend that motion.
All right.
I would like to change the effective date to January 1.
That's almost upon us, so that can't happen.
Well,
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think
I
that
mean,
we,
if you think about it,
the board members are working to
Yeah.
submit their lists to
Right.
Jean by Christmas.
yeah.
So I think it's an appropriate handover to make January 1st the effective date of this change.
but that will not affect the PPPs. The poll managers for PPPs.
No.
You have already done your poll managers list for PPPs.
Right, we've done our best with our poll manager list. So the handover would be
Yeah.
at the end of the year, so starting January 1st, the staff would take responsibility. And I'm sure that all the board members will help as much as they
As
can.
needed.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what is that?
What does that mean?
That means that any changes to the assignments to voting locations would be done by staff for the PPPs. Any shortfalls in numbers of clerks or poll managers would be handled by staff and supported by board members.
That's what, we're still trying to, you said supported by board members. Now, we have 4 early voting sites. We have to do the training.
We got this.
We're trying to figure out what you mean, support.
For January 1st. Be okay?
That's fine.
I would just like to add a statement, and this is a good, motion to make, this is a good discussion. However, I would like to continue the personalized contact that I have with my poll workers, if that's acceptable to the staff.
It's not just staff, it's to the board.
No, I'm just saying, no, that's the motion. The motion is that the staff will take care of it. And I'm just saying that I would like to continue my personalized contact. And if there are any poll managers or poll workers that I cannot reach or for any reason cannot fulfill my allotment, then of course the staff would.
No, Ms. Beverly, that's not, I don't think that's not.
We got to go with one,
What
we
we
have
are
to go with one
proposing
thing.
is
Can't be
that we
scrambled.
do it, and if we need assistance from the board, then we will
Yeah.
come to the board.
Okay.
But if the staff is gonna be making if we're gonna be managing it, then we need to
Then
be
go make
managing
manage.
it.
Okay.
And then
Well,
we will seek assistance from board members if necessary.
And Marie and staff, as you manage, you all will be assigning those workers to the board members. So, the board members shouldn't be trying to pick and choose who they get, or saying, well, why I don't have
We're
A,
not
B,
gonna
and C.
offset
I
anything.
don't like
But
that.
that, people could be thinking that because they don't have their hands in it. So I just wanted to go on record that, they're going to manage it, and that's what they will do. They will be managing the staffing and the training of the poll
Training
workers.
is fine.
So
Okay.
prior to an election, we would get a list, here are your poll workers, here are your clerks assigned to these locations.
That's right. And then you probably still need to get to know them too. Get to know them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we have a motion on the floor. Okay, we ready to vote?
No, it wasn't seconded.
I thought it was.
He
No,
wanted
He
to
amended.
amend it.
Oh, he
It
amended
was
it?
amended, yes.
What was the amendment?
So why don't I
Training
why don't I
effective
restate
January
it?
1.
Effective January 1, staff will acquire the management and assignment and associated training of all poll workers for all elections.
Okay. Now, can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, it's
Oh,
been
wait.
properly,
Are we up for discussion now?
Yes.
Marie, can you give me a feel for how labor intensive this will be for the staff if it starts on January 1st versus March 1st?
I've pretty much discussed this with staff, and I think we are up to the task. So I can't tell you in hours how much time it will take, but we will get it done, and it will be done efficiently.
I understand that, but the staff suggested March 1st for a reason.
Well, we didn't want to dip and dab into what you have already done for the PPPs, and we know the PPPs are in February. But if you say to us that you want us to take it over in January, then we will assign your PPP people where we want them to go.
I don't like that.
you're gonna have the opportunity to vote.
I know that.
Everybody's gonna have the opportunity to vote because we cannot
And if
continue
somebody
to.
calls and drop out, and we look at your list, and we need to take that person and put them someplace else, we will have that flexibility. That's what you guys are giving us.
I understand that. What I'm asking is that we're in December. January 1st is 2 weeks away, basically. And what I'm asking is, from a labor-intensive perspective, considering what the staff is involved with, how critical or how damaging this may be on the staff if it starts January 1st versus March 1st. I need to know that before I can make an intelligent vote. If there's any way possible, you can couch that for me.
I think that what Gene is our trainer.
I'm not trying to be difficult.
And Wendell is Gene's assistant when it comes down to training. And I'm the backup for all of them because
Right.
I trained all of them, okay? So we will have whatever it takes. If you notice when we set up the PPP training, we set it up where we split up so that we can have more sessions available for poll managers to attend. We're gonna be doing sessions, 2 sessions at the same time. Because we've heard from you all that there is not enough training sessions to allow everybody an opportunity to attend. We are up to the task, and it's gonna cause us to maybe readjust our schedule a little bit, but we will be able to do it. Because I think most of you have already selected your poll managers for the PPP, so all we gotta do is assign them. Jean?
You're asking how labor intensive it'll be between now and the mandatory briefings to get that complete, was that your,
The whole complete package.
okay.
We talking about 2 weeks between now and the 1st of January, if you're going to,
How,
if we agree to, if we vote in favor of this, of the proposal of 1 January, I'm trying to get a feel for how intensive that is going to be for the staff.
okay, so 2 board members have given me their complete lists, so that helps. How labor intensive the next 2 weeks are is dependent on how filled the rest of the lists are. So if everybody has done their lists and they could just send them to me, then it's not very labor intensive, I just have to fill in the gaps. If some board members haven't done anything, that obviously adds to it, and if some board members have people at every precinct, but maybe there's only 1 or 2 workers, and then that contributes to it as well. So that question, how labor intensive it'll be for the next couple of weeks, or in the next couple of weeks, is dependent on how many poll workers they have already contacted and assigned.
So,
So we still don't know exactly.
yeah, but it gives me a better feel. So all of this is going to fall on Gene to, if it's effective 1 January, that means that everything that hasn't been done will fall on Gene and Gene alone to get it done? Gene and Wendell? Okay.
That's why we strategically made it March 1st.
March 1st. I think we're really,
Somebody
really
call
not
me.
being sensitive to what they can and cannot do.
Herbert?
Okay.
Maybe
Motion's on the table.
make you comfortable if
We're
I
gonna
don't
still
put
vote.
it on the
Come on,
staff.
guys, let's,
That would help.
Hire temporary staff.
Eileen, I just spoke sort of out of turn to Herbert, and he said he'd feel more comfortable. You said you've already received 2 lists. I know you haven't received mine.
haven't
As right
received
now, I'm
mine.
short 1 clerk that would be assigned with Rebecca Lawton, and I've got somebody who's praying on it. That is my only real gap. I would like 1 more person at the fire station, because I have 2 people who are only working 1 of the PVPs, and October probably needs another person. That would be, if my person who's praying on it works, you'll have a full list for me. So you've got
I'll
2,
have my
I
list
make
coming.
3.
Monday.
Will your list be full?
I need to ask a question. I need to ask a question.
Okay.
Board members, how many of you have already started your list? And how far are you on your list, and have you sent anything to Jane yet?
I have not sent something
I'm
to Jean,
almost
just
finished.
Hold on.
You
I'm
asked.
gonna start to the right,
Okay.
so I can make sure I hear everything.
I have
Okay?
not sent anything to Jean, and I just reported that I'm short 1 clerk with good possibility, and I would like 1 more person at 1 polling place.
Thank you. Mr. Wedgeworth.
I haven't sent anything to Gene, but I think I'm in pretty good shape. I probably need 3 more people. So I could send you the list I got, which is pretty complete.
Okay. Don?
I haven't sent anything to Gene. I have a ways to go.
Okay.
I have not sent anything to Gene
Okay.
lately, but I am more than 2/3 complete. And I also want to point out that starting January 1st, if this responsibility is the staff's, it's as primary responsibility. I'm not going to go hands-off. I will be secondary responsibility and continue to support to make sure that all my assigned precincts are staffed.
Okay.
But it's January 1st would be the handover of primary responsibility.
Beverly?
I'm virtually finished, and I will be getting it to Jean. Getting my full report.
I
to
haven't
her.
sent anything to Gene. I've reached out to about 60% of my contact list. I've only gotten about a 30% response back one way or the other to voicemails, emails. And so it's very much a work in progress. Particularly concerned about Buckwalter Rec Center with the number of precincts and the number of previous poll clerks who are no longer available. So I think there's a gap definitely there, but some of the other ones are in better shape, but a little concerned about just the general response rate coming back. It's, I'd say 30% rate of what I've contacted so far.
Pardon?
I submitted my list to Gene. It's pretty complete.
Yes, Wendell.
The other thing to keep in mind is that every precinct is supposed to have a clerk, and we have more precincts to deal with now with those precincts as well. It's not what you normally do.
And he is not here, but Craig Pelly has also sent me his complete list, just so you guys have.
And I've sent Jean my list. I'm waiting on about 10 more people, and I hope we'll have that by Monday of next week. Okay.
What's the deadline for submission, Jean?
I asked for it by Christmas.
Okay, next week.
Okay.
So will all the board members have their list completed by the deadline?
Yes.
Yes.
No,
No?
I will submit what I have.
May still have some vacancies.
I can give it to you today. I'll keep working on it and update it if I get
Okay, we're gonna vote. We're ready to vote. All right, all who in favor of January 1st, 2024 for the poll worker management to be done by Jean and Wendell, raise your hands. I don't want eyes. I want you to raise your hands so we can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? All in favor of not doing that on January 1st, raise your hand. Okay? So it's 5 to 3, so it will start on January 1st. And as Marie said, and Jean said, they will be doing the work. We as board members, we're gonna need to fulfill our jobs and our responsibilities. And we're gonna let them do what they do. And we are going to have to do what we need to do. And it should be outlined, and I can read some of it from here, and I know you have it also on your handout. That is going to be very important that we do just that, so when the work comes to the central hub on the election night, we don't have a lot of hiccups and gaps that they will have to be fulfilling by calling the clerks to find out where is their paperwork. Is the paperwork correct as far as the reconciliation sheet? Every sheet that comes in should be correct. And I will be here on election night. I will also be at my central drop-off location to make sure that everyone is dropping off, and then I'm gonna come and check to make sure that the sheets are correct.
Well, your sheets will be going to your drop-off site.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but I'm gonna make sure that they are done correctly, because we're gonna have to also do our part to make a smooth transaction of work for everyone. Okay?
Well, I think Ms. Arlene just covered the last couple of bullets. And she was just reiterating to the board that we all have a responsibility. And because staff is not out in the fields on election day, we have to depend on the board. And one thing that I think you all have already gone through a couple of canvass hearings, and the completeness of that provisional ballot envelope is very, very important. And if you could just monitor on election day when you go around and visiting your precincts, that you ensure that these forms, first thing, there's a checklist that they need to complete in the morning and a checklist they need to complete in the afternoon. There's a checklist for where everything should go at the end of the evening. So there are checklists all over the place. But what's very, very important are those provisional ballot envelopes need to be completed. That reconciliation sheet need to be completed. What else? Those are the two major things. And the reason for that is because these items are subjected to our audit process. And the state we have to send this information back to the state. The other thing that I'm just going to throw it out here because I know this happens, is the poll list that you all get as a backup for the electronic poll book. Please do not use that poll list unless you are using it because
Emergency.
yeah, it's emergency if the EPB is not working. Other than that, you should not be using that poll list because that poll list has to go back to the state. And anything that you mark on that list, they are going to try and upload that information into their system when that information is already recorded in the EPP. So it's double work for the poll managers and it's double work for the state. So please do not do that. Also, if there is someone that needs to be added to the poll list, that goes at the back of the poll list. But we will walk whoever the clerk is through that process if needed. So I don't think we necessarily have to take a vote on the responsibility of the board because I know you all have gone through that before. But this is something that is necessary in order for us to make sure that all the necessary paperwork that we are going to be audited on are complete.
Would you please just clarify the meaning of the third sub-bullet?
Yeah.
Board will assist poll workers as needed with opening and closing procedures?
Yes, there are some clerks that have a little bit of problem closing. You know, in our training, we talk about working as a team. If you know you have a strong team at one point and a weaker team, maybe a brand new clerk, you want to make sure you are at that location with that brand new clerk to make sure that they are getting that precinct up and running in a timely manner. We have to report, especially to the State Election Commission, when there's a statewide election involved. We have to report to the state when all of our precincts are open. Because the law says by 7 a.m. all precincts should be open. And in order for us to meet that deadline, we need you all who are out there in that morning. You can't come at 7 o'clock. You need to be there at 6 o'clock when your clerks are there to make sure they're up and running. And if that one is good, you go to the next one. But it's important that you are in the field, checking with them, making sure that they have what they need. Somebody may not have a long enough extension cord, and they can't reach the outlet. These are the kind of things that you all can help at the precinct with on election morning by notifying the technician or helping the clerk notify the technician to get them whatever they needed. So,
A lot of times you'll have it in your bag too. You're like the third, you're like another, if you're there and they say, oh, we ran out of this sign, then you might have this extra sign in your bag. That's why y'all have your bags. Y'all pick your bags up like the day before as well. And have them out there when you're out there in the morning.
so but that makes sense. And in the evening, if you see them struggling during the day, be there too to help them close. And one thing that we noticed that a lot of them are not picking up on is how to close the EPPs.
You don't just put your shut off button. They get a process to shut that thing down. And we can tell if it's not closed.
But we will reiterate all of this during the training for clerks, and because you all will still be responsible for coming to the training, right? Because you need to know what's being trained, what your clerks and poll managers are being trained.
And you said you're training for the clerks, and we are not having any specific clerk training before the PPPs.
We will be doing, we don't want to go on record right now, but
I see a no.
we will have, we will set aside some time during the regular briefing for clerks.
They're like hybrid trainings.
No.
Could you, and I mean, I hate to throw ideas out, at the regular trainings, start, say if you're a clerk, come in 15 minutes earlier, half an hour earlier, stay late, and you could just do, you know, the things they need, especially,
We
I've had
already
a lot
have
of.
a plan. We're
Okay.
just not ready to put it out there
Okay,
yet.
because
It's
I
not
know I'm
done.
gonna have at least, assuming the lady who's praying, 2 people who've never been a clerk before.
Usually, at a large election like the November 5th election coming up, there's an additional clerk training. Will it, provisions be made to do one of those, for the large election?
For the large election, the state will let us know if there will be additional funds for that. Now, we don't have any additional funds for the PPP, but we will be addressing the clerks. We will be doing that.
You will be doing the additional
Some
training
additional
for the
training
clerks.
And we are going to incorporate it into the regular poll managers training. So everybody will not have to sit through it.
I
Just
came to
notice.
one year where we had the actual machines and we were given hands-on types of simulation activities. And I thought that that was very helpful, where we had to actually do the reconciliation sheet, practice it, and actually manipulate the machines. I thought that that was something we should continue.
On the last election, I identified someone that I feel is able to be a clerk. And I think she has consented to possibly serve as a clerk in training. How could I arrange for something like that so that she can get to that point where she'll be comfortable to be assigned as a clerk? Do I work with Jean on that, or
Yes.
Wendell?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's nodding her head behind you.
Huh?
Yeah.
Jean is nodding her head yes behind you.
Who, you remember the name?
Yeah,
Yeah, just tell us.
Just let me know.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we're not hard to get along with.
I know you're not. I'm trying to be
We want our
helpful.
clerks to have the exposure that they need to be comfortable, and we know, we recognize that they're not gonna remember everything. That's why we foster the team concept. If someone don't remember how to do this, if you don't remember, maybe somebody in your group or on your team does, and work together to accomplish a task. We don't want any one person responsible for anything by themselves, even a brand new clerk, especially a brand new clerk. So these are some of the other things that we are recommending so far as pool managers, management is concerned, is that recruitment will be for all of us to do. It's not for any one group or in particular. We will quarterly have new poll managers training in the non-general election year, which are the odd years, 2021, 2023, 2025. We will have at least 4 scheduled poll managers training. In the general election year, of course, we will have more, and that schedule, all of these schedules will be presented to you at the beginning of the year. So that we will look at what's going on, set up a schedule, and present it to the board. I think I already said that. Now, effective November the 24th, 2024, in this fiscal budget year, which will be fiscal budget year 25, we will recommend to our county budget committee that we pay a supplemental pay of $100 for all elections, all poll workers. Now, you have to understand that we can request it, but it doesn't necessarily mean we will get it.
Marie, when does the budget cycle start for the next
It's
fiscal
kinda
year?
like
January. So how can we help lobbying the right people to help them,
If we get
to
an
help you get it
opportunity-
approved?
If we get an opportunity to present, like we thought we were going to this past time, we didn't. But if we get an opportunity to present, you being the chair of the budget committee, you may want to be there
Sure.
doing the presentation.
Yep.
And any board member. Now, if that's something you feel strongly about and you express that to the budget committee, maybe they won't feel so finger happy to delete it out of the budget.
I think this is, I have my hand up.
That's Mr. Ford.
Go ahead, Mr.
Is,
Ford.
so I like the November 24 recommendation. However, I'm more inclined to get involved in this process much earlier than that.
It will be.
It starts in January.
It starts in January.
Okay.
Our actual submission, I think the actual submission is late March, early April. So we're
Okay.
saying for that one, that's what we want to do now for that.
Okay.
So yeah.
We have to have it approved
Have to
before
have it
June
approved.
30th of this
Yeah.
year. To go into effect in July of 2024.
Okay.
That's the fiscal year. We're on fiscal year July to June.
So if there are funds that are available from the council budget immediately, I am more inclined to trying to get this done sooner rather than later, as in the early part of '24. Because one of the number one complaints I got in November was the amount of money that they're being paid. Every site that I went to, everybody was complaining that we're not paying them enough. So I think all board members would be willing to
Yes.
go to their council reps to see if there's any way possible to get additional funds earlier in the year if it's available. I know I am. Because like I said, those poll workers and clerks beat me over the head in November about not being paid enough.
Okay, so
And
you
I
want
felt-
to make that specific to a particular election? We have the PPPs, I know it's not gonna be available for the PPPs. And if you think it's gonna be available, if you can solicit counsel and get additional monies for the June primary, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think
That will be-
that's probably the most
That would be tremendous.
realistic
Yeah.
date.
I think I would be next.
Beverly's next.
I think that this is something that as a board, we need to develop a strategic plan to approach and not just individually to our particular county council members. And I think an approved, well-thought-out plan would give us better results than, our individual effort. I think collectively, I think this can be done.
Okay, who's next?
I think I was.
Yeah.
And I was kind of piggybacking some of what you were saying, is if, to develop that strategic plan that you're talking about, if we could have important dates, when meetings are being held, information on, the people that we need to contact, if we can get the information from you to make it approach effective, because I agree, the ad hoc might help, but it'll be much more
Right.
effective if it's a team effort
Right.
that's very organized. And I'd like
As
information help us.
soon as we know, we can give it to you. The issue, like she said, the issue was last year, they didn't tell us anything. And we figured that whatever we submitted was gonna go through because we didn't have to have a meeting for us to explain why we felt we needed this or needed that. And we were just utterly surprised when it came through. So as soon as we know, and if we don't hear anything when we think we should be hearing anything, we'll approach them and say, hey, are we supposed to have a meeting to discuss it? We'll make sure that y'all know.
Well, and maybe even before that, as soon as you submit it, we can start.
We should
We're
take
not
the
gonna submit
leadership.
to them.
We should
No,
take
gotta
the
have-
leadership
They will
on
give us
this.
dates, and when submission is and all that kind of stuff, and through the finance committee with Mr. Backer, we'll have all that information, into the board. And everything. But until we know, we can't say, we don't know yet. The minute we know, we'll have it to you.
But my point is, even before, as long as you've submitted it.
No, we can't submit it
We can't
before.
submit before we know.
That is a budget process.
Okay.
Okay, Matt, and then after Matt, it's gonna be me.
Okay, so I agree with Herbert that we should try to get the supplements prepared for the June primaries, at least. And I agree with Beverly, it should be a formal approach. I believe this would be a special appropriation from county council, which would require 3 readings. So I think that we need to look at the county council meeting schedule and try to put together our formal request so that we can get it for first reading at the next council meeting.
Right.
And also somewhat related to this, Marie, for your information, when we were up in Columbia yesterday, we asked Howie Knapp if he would do a survey of all of the counties to find out what they're paying poll workers. And he said he would do that. He said it was done 3 or 4 years ago, but that he would do it again. So I think if we, from both sides, can push Howie Knapp to do that, that would help give Mr. Backer and Wendell the ammunition they need for next year's budget.
Okay. All right. As Matt was saying, I was going to bring that up. The next county council meeting, I do know if you want to speak, you normally have to sign a little slip in order to speak. Am I correct?
Well, that's if you're speaking at county council. I think we need to go to the committee. I think we need to go to council. They have a committee, finance committee, the same one we were talking about the other day.
Yes.
I think it has to go through committee.
Okay.
Because it's not like we are complaining about anything. This is a county operation, so it needs to be addressed as
So
such.
the finance, okay. So when do they have their meetings? You can probably let us know.
We'll find.
Yeah, and then that way, the chair and we will be there along with them to show that we are in support of that and make that recommendation.
Madam Chair, when will we meet to develop a plan? We were talking about the
Your chair, right,
strategic
he's the
plan.
chair. There's your chair right there next to you.
Mr. Backer?
Mr. Backer is the
The
chair.
question is, when can we put together a meeting to make the special appropriation request?
You can do it right in early January.
Add that to the agenda for January, the week of the 8th.
Well, when I saw Wendell and Jean's, or certainly Wendell's schedule of the high schools that he's going to be, training, I was trying to propose a finance committee meeting the week of the 8th. Maybe we don't need Wendell and Marie, if you could be available for a finance committee meeting. The intent of that meeting really was to review the first 6 months of the fiscal year, and just for the committee, since it'd be our first meeting, to get just a general understanding of the reports that are available to you, what the budget cycle and that process really is, and then who the key contacts would be, like the finance committee chair at county council, and we could use that meeting to develop. If we can get that date on the calendar, we can use that meeting to kind of put together a strategy for approaching the finance committee.
So alternately, if we look at the county council calendar, and there's an opportunity to get this special appropriation request in sooner, could we isolate that issue from the general budget discussion?
Yeah.
And do
Right.
a Zoom meeting?
Sure.
This is not
Yeah.
about, this is special appropriation,
Yeah.
it's not the budget.
Yep.
Mr. Backer, the first week in January, I don't know when, I think the month comes in on
Monday.
on a Monday. So we have that week, if you want to start working on that proposal in your committee. And may I suggest too that anyone who have a thought, we really need to keep it to the committee and let the committee do the preliminary work. Just send it to Mr. Backer, whatever your thoughts are. So you can give us a call, Mr. Backer, after the meeting and come up with a date if you are available the first week in January.
So you're proposing the week of January 1st?
So,
Yeah.
That very first? Okay.
I'm on the
Close
committee.
on
Yeah.
the first.
Yeah, close the first. The 3rd, 4th, or 5th, Jim?
Okay,
Okay.
Mr. Ford?
We'll work on that.
Well, if we close the loop on that, I want to make another suggestion.
Suggested.
Well, the board just made a decision to transfer work to the staff. And I know that we're already down at least one person. And I'm thinking that with the additional responsibility that we're thrusting on staff, there should be some consideration to possibly looking for additional staff to get the work done. So I'm proposing that at least one additional person be added in terms of your manpower as well as a slot. Do you all feel that would be something that would alleviate some of the stress that is being thrust upon the staff?
Not at this time. Not at this time. I think that, we're just looking at the calendar for the board. There's a finance committee meeting on January the 16th, and I know they have to have whatever the proposals are prior to that, and probably almost like a week, I guess, odds and lefts, I don't know. But so far as staff is concerned, once we fill our billet, that we are down. But what you have to also remember, this year, 2024 is really an unusual year. We have never been plagued with so many elections since probably back in 2015 and 2016. And the reason for that is because we didn't expect to have the PPP, 2 PPPs. Because usually the sitting president, whatever party that is, doesn't have a PPP. So we were only planning for one PPP. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, so we having to adjust. But no, so far as staff is concerned, when we go through all of these changes in the next couple of months, we will among staff decide whether or not we think we need additional. Right now, I don't see it, but Gene may have other plans, and Woodward may have other plans. Typically, we are not this stretched. Like I said, two special elections within 2 months is unheard of for us.
Then you don't want any help.
Well, I think it's,
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this time that we in the crunch time right now, but it's not gonna always be that way. It's not gonna always be that way.
And you gotta, when you say help them walk in the door and learn everything. So you got, that learning curve, then it's gonna be just another thing to do. So that, you know.
That wasn't under the table statement. That was not meant to be addressed.
No, but
We're not in executive session.
Pow, pow, pow.
I know we're running out of time because we're getting almost 2 hours here. So, if you don't mind, can we move on? Can we
Yes,
move
please
forward?
do,
I
yes.
think that's it.
Doing the precinct thing, we have made some good strides on securing polling locations. And these are some of the listings that we've had already, but we have confirmed May River High School, we have confirmed May River Baptist Church, we have, I'm not sure if that's on the next page. The May River Baptist Church has been confirmed. We've confirmed USCB Boundary Street Gymnasium. That used to be the Old Boys and Girls Club, so they have a big gymnasium in there. And so we're gonna be using that, Mr. Lucas, that's yours. We're gonna be using that in February because
It's a gymnasium.
the issues we have in Green Street Gym and all of that, we just decided.
Yeah, with their schedule, that.
Good riddance. Grace AME Church has been confirmed, and the Sea Island Presbyterian Church has been confirmed. Oh, Havisham has been confirmed as well. So, we have new facilities. The challenge is, notifying, we were told that we have to notify, our voters when we change precinct and when we change polling location. I know when we change polling location because they are physically moving to a different place, you have to notify them. Now, the question is, when do we notify them is the other question. But, so we will be sending out for sure some voter registration cards. We looked at our budget so far as, printing and mailing, postage, printing and postage. The town of Hilton Head, not the town, but Public Service District of Hilton Head, by law, they have to notify everybody as well. So we know all the precincts on Hilton Head, except for a few, will have to be notified, plus the new ones of their new PSD districts. So, when we solicit funds for poll workers, we may need to solicit additional funds to make sure every voter in Beaufort County get a voter registration card with all the changes. But we do need to confirm these places, because if we don't have them confirmed, and we send out a voter registration card, and 2 months later we get it confirmed, we gotta send out another one. So, we need to get all our polling locations to us, confirmed, and ready to go. So, if you are still looking at some locations and you're not sure, see if you can put a little bit of pressure on those folks to say yay or nay, so that we can get it all done one time. Just a reminder of the SCARE conference, and what we left out of here the last time is that our SCARE conference is a legislative conference. We have legislators there from across the state at that conference, and we kind of like share with them what our concerns are what our goals are for the organization and for the election officials and voters in our state. So, being that some of us have personal contact with some of our legislators, over the years, we've only had, since I've been going to SCARE, and I've been here for 18 years, I've only had one of our legislators to attend a SCARE conference. Now, this year is a little bit different because it's in March, and typically we have it in February, and sometimes we've had it in January. But this year it's in March. Now, whether or not they will be in their budget sessions, which was the excuse why they couldn't come before, because they were involved mostly in the state budget sessions. But we've had legislators to come, and maybe they were within the vicinity why they were able to come. We did have one senator to come from our delegation two years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago. And that was Margie Bright Matthews, because her director kind of like the lady in Hampton County pretty much put her on blast. So she felt she felt obligated to come. So, but you guys, if you know your legislators to that point, if you could get them to come, just listen to don't just listen to what Beaufort County is saying. Listen to what's being said across the state, from other counties, and the challenges that are being faced by our voters and our officers.
Chris, when do you think you'll have an idea of what the agenda is going to look like?
I called the president to see if she had a tentative agenda. Usually, we try to put up a tentative agenda so board members will know what the schedules are, but she didn't answer. So, once we get the tentative agenda, we will get that out to you as soon as possible. The state typically does have classes, so if nothing else, you know there will be a class, and it's usually a
It's usually professional development.
Yeah, professional development, which you could also use.
Well, they said that this week that we could, if we took a class, they would count towards the training requirement that we have.
Right.
Yes.
Keeps you certified for the
Right.
But we just don't, usually it's about, they usually do 2 classes. The last time I think they did 3. Yeah, they did. Yeah, so there will be classes there. So just look at your schedule, tentatively pencil it in, and as soon as we get the agenda with a little bit more details, we will send it to you.
And it's a good opportunity for you just to relax and get to know the rest of the people are doing the same things you're doing.
You really get to network with other counties, and it's a really good environment to mingle with people who are headed in the same direction and have the same responsibilities as you do, so you can get some on-hand comparative notes about the other counties. And the legislative information is very, very interesting and useful. I've found that each conference is very useful.
Okay. Recess, end of her report. Any questions for Marie? Okay, Matt got one.
Actually, I have a question for you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Based on the motion that passed to shift the management of poll managers to staff instead of board members, the Board Operations Manual Individual Responsibilities section needs to be revised to have that bullet regarding appointing poll managers. That needs to be moved to the Directors section.
Okay.
So since Mr. Pelly isn't here, could you ask the Rules Committee to make that change, please?
Eileen,
Can I get a copy?
Give it to Jean.
I'm on that committee, and I'm willing to act as, I guess you'd call it acting chair, since
I'm
Craig's
glad
gone.
you volunteered.
Can't say
No,
no
I
to
mean, I'm willing to do that and try
Jean will
to
get a copy for
get
us.
get it updated. If you can give me whatever changes that you see based on the changes we've made today, I'll try to get them in there.
Okay,
Jean
I
got
just
it
gave
right
them
there.
to Jean.
Yeah.
I'll give them to
She's
you.
gonna make a copy.
Okay. Can,
Let me just ask one little question. The poll managers, poll manager management, is that what you guys were talking about? Or was it, was I off? Is that
No,
what you guys
you were
were
right.
talking about?
You haven't had,
All right. We should have gone.
You don't mind? Waiting. Okay, based on some of the things we heard in Columbia, I have a couple questions for Marie, as well as a couple of other issues that I was interested in. So, Howie talked about the drums queue and how horrible they are across the state. Are we up to date?
I'm sorry?
Howie, at our conference that we, the training we went to the last couple of days, we talked about the drums queue and that they're horrible across the state. People haven't entered the data. Are we up to date on that?
On the drums?
Entering new people to
From
come in on the
DMV.
DMV. That's what he called it.
Or voter queue.
Oh, the motor voter.
Yeah,
Oh, our motor voter is up to date.
great.
We
Because he
found-
said across the state, it's a mess. So we're in good shape, we're ahead of the curve on
We
that.
do online voter registration, we have one person assigned to online, and we have one person assigned to motor voter. And the motor voter only comes in once a week.
Well, as I said, he basically said board members need to go back and find out how your county is doing, because most counties are not up to date, so we're ahead on that. This is not based on, well, let me do the one that's based on else. He talked about a security survey that the SEC did in conjunction with Homeland Security. And he said, based on a question from the audience, that not only are we allowed to see it, he strongly urged that we see it. And, be aware, so we could be aware of the security issues that were brought up in that audit. And of course, we just had our expert on, executive session, but obviously, I think, as he said, we shouldn't even share it with the delegation. The only person he said we should share with, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the county administrator. But that we should see that, and
We don't have it, they have not sent it to us yet.
they have not sent ours. Does he imply that all the counties have it? Okay, well, as soon as it comes in.
The survey is a physical survey, they come around, Homeland Security comes around, and they do a walkthrough and whatever, and then they write up a report and send it to us.
That was very interesting, because he said that within the last year, they've finished every county.
They came, we just
They
don't have
came,
the
we
vote.
talked, actually what we did with them was, we told them some things we felt that we needed to have, and they said, what we will do, we will push it, like, I'm not telling what they are, he said, we'll push it so that your people will do it for you.
Okay.
Making it, we'll say it's important that you get this done.
Well,
But
when that time comes, if we could schedule an executive session, because obviously that is one of the appropriate times.
I know what he's talking about, we've gotten, they've tried to do it like, every 2 years. And, but we have not gotten the one that they did, the last one that they did.
So they did the examination, but we just haven't gotten the report.
The result.
Okay, so when that comes in, we
The
can
board is
schedule that.
usually, that's usually shared with the board.
Okay, and my last one is not based on this, but based on some of my experiences as a third class student with what happened when we did redistricting. Is there a way, and I think this would be a great thing for your re-precincting committee to do, that we can basically conduct our own personal audit, sample, some of the precincts that have been changed to make sure that they were updated correctly?
How you gonna do that, what you gonna do, how you gonna do that?
Okay, we have person's name, excuse me, my mouth is getting really dry. And, I mean, this is just my off-the-wall thinking that could be improved. And you just do a voter search. Like somebody comes in to vote. Okay, tell me why I'm wrong, I mean, I want to know. Okay.
And re-precincting and what we are doing, what happened the last time, and I almost kind of, to be honest with you, sick and tired of that. That was a mistake that was not totally this office fault. It was the data that we received.
Okay, and that includes the people not being in the EPD.
No, people not in the EPD have nothing to do with it. happened in June last year was that a district was not updated on the street file. And then that was because we didn't have that information to update it on the street file. But we took the heat for that, okay? So what we have done is, right now, we get these reports coming from RFA through the State Election Commission, the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office, who's responsible for mapping or keeping the maps for every county in our state, okay? And on that map, those maps should match with our local maps, all right? So, we get information from them that are incorrect. And we've gone through 2 reports from them that it was like, listen, this is not right. It's just not right. And so we compare with what we have locally, with what they have, and then the 2 of our 2 GIS people, they talk to make the fix. Now, when we did the redistricting, that didn't happen because we didn't know it was incorrect until what happened. And that's when we realized there were a lot of things that probably, we were more aware of the fact that we need to check behind the people who are telling us what to do.
So there is a procedure in place to check behind the people to make sure people have been put in the right precincts? Okay. Because, I mean, ultimately, we're responsible.
Yes, ma'am.
If they're not, and I was hoping that we could come up with a way that prior to the time people actually voted, we could do a random sample to check that, you know, Susie Smith is in the correct precinct.
Well, the correct precinct is kind of complicated. A person is put in a precinct based on where they live, the address, the physical address, not the mailing address, the physical
Their
address.
domicile.
Okay. The street files are generated by the GIS department or the mapping department, or however you want to call it. All right. We in turn create those street files. We take those street files and we set them up in our VREM system, our voter registration management system. Okay. And then the state has a process called redistricting. That once we get those files set up, they will move all the voters into the correct precinct. Now, there was an issue that happened during the last election where one guy was not in the right precinct, okay? But he was not in the right precinct because of what we did. It was the way the lines were drawn, which we cannot change. We cannot change precinct lines. This this family lived in Belfair, but when the state drew the lines and the county drew the line, they drew this one particular street in Belfair out of Belfair into Rose Hill. So a voter said, hey, I didn't get to vote in my precinct that I normally vote in, and we stopped the research. Well, no, you didn't, because you live in Rose Hill. So we have to go back to the state and say, y'all gotta redraw the line. And you know what? It's not gonna get done until January, because it has to go back to the legislators for it to be done. So it's a lot that's involved in that process than just looking at it and say, you cannot necessarily look at it and say this person is in the right precinct or not in the right precinct.
Well, I just want to make sure, because the issue I dealt with was different. The people were not actually uploaded into the EPVs. Remember the 63 calls I made to you that day?
Right.
And I wanted to know if there's a way prior to the election that we can test that people have been placed in their new precincts.
I don't know if you can come up with one. We can. Chris, you know a way? Well, let us just think about it.
Okay.
Because again, that was something that the state did not do.
But this one would be time sensitive in the sense that we've got PVPs coming up. It's not something, if we're going to do, we can wait. We need, the problems will be there in February if it's not.
Well, like I said, that was, again, a lot of things went on with that redistricting that was not our
I understand.
fault. I want people to know that, because everybody's looking at me like we screwed up. I'm sorry.
But it's facts.
We didn't make a mistake.
The truth is the truth.
Great,
People believe in lying for the truth.
Yeah, don't you know that we've been preaching, Chris? We talk about this every day because we're going through this process now, updating our street files, moving all these new people into the new precincts where they need to be, and we have an internal check and balance system that we're using to each of us checking behind each other.
Okay, I will
So,
agree with that.
thank you, ma'am.
Matt?
I just want to make the other board members aware, Marie, you asked the GIS department to prepare an easy to read map of precinct split. And this was invaluable to help speak to the property managers of prospective new polling places so they could understand what community would be voting there. So I thank you for putting this together. And I think if any other board members want an easy to understand division of precinct splits, Marie could probably help to get the GIS department.
We did that, yeah, we did one for the Haven when we were trying to go to the
Do we want to
Haven.
put more on them since they go
But
through
for the other
the
one-
list and the calling and all of that?
Yeah, we can't do the number, that's one, I was telling you about the number.
Hampton Lakes.
Because we don't know who's where.
Hampton Lake, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those are good questions and good concerns, and I thank you all for understanding that there's a lot involved with what's going on right now, and we are doing the best we can to make sure we don't make any mistakes, because we do not want a repeat of what happened.
Since you were just talking about how a precinct line could possibly be moved, that has to be done by the legislature. I heard from a number of people at Palmetto Bluff about this, I guess, tiny area called, I think, Headwaters or something, where there's maybe a handful of Palmetto Bluff residents live there. But they vote somewhere, they have to vote somewhere else, and for everybody else in Palmetto Bluff, it turned out to be very convenient for them to be able to vote it there.
Do you know one of the voters' names? What's the name of the area?
I think it's called Headwaters. Yeah.
Headwaters.
Headwaters.
We're looking for that.
And-
Because, and it's gonna take the people
not
at
many
the
people
precinct.
live
No, it's just a small number of
They're
people.
really nice homes.
It's possibly the wise for Hamilton, because I know the area that he's referring to. They were not annexed either into Palmetto Bluff. When Palmetto Bluff went into the town of Bluffton.
Is that part of that community? The Palmetto
Yeah,
Bluff
and they're
community?
looking outside, yeah. Because they were upset too, wanting to know why they weren't even in the town of Bluffton when Palmetto Bluff annexed into the town of Bluffton. They just didn't want to pull that little strip in there.
You said Wise, W-I-S-E,
Yeah,
in Hamilton?
yeah.
You don't know first name, you can't remember, well,
No, I don't know why it's first, my first name. But I can get it back, because I know them. I know both of them.
Again, the lines that are drawn by the state, and once it's been drawn, it goes up to the Library of Congress as history. So any changes have to go back to the legislature. So if you know of issues like that, you need to let us know so we can have them look into it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Closing comments, announcements? We're moving on along. Any announcements? Well, I have one. I would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, be safe. Darn, you're getting your eyes done, right, in January?
The pre-op is next week and the procedure is in January.
Oh, boy.
His son-in-law is doing it.
Mhm, you told me.
I'll put a good word in for
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Okay, and I would just like again to just say to Beverly, on that great report that you've given. You've always gave reports, but I guess because we are into the end of the year, you decided that you would just really hit it out of the park.
Thank you.
And I thank everyone else for their work and due diligence that they're doing so that we can continue to work as a team. Everyone to be safe. And our next board meeting is scheduled for January 24th. County Council Chambers at 2 p.m. And the Finance Committee, please don't forget to send your notes to Mr. Backer, so that way he can have his information ready. Rules Committee, thank you, Liz, for stepping in so we can get everything updated so every board member can have a manual in his or her possession. We really need that. We need that done like
Yesterday.
last week. Okay? Anything else before I ask for an adjournment?
Our holiday break will be December 22nd, 25th, and 26th.
Is that the same as Christmas break?
Yes, sir.
Just check.
And January 1.
On the go.
I'm for Christmas.
Okay? Anything else? All right, what about,
I move that we adjourn.
all right.
I second.
Properly moved and second that we adjourn this meeting. Everybody, please be safe and thanks for the great work that we are doing. Don't forget to send your information to Jean. All right?